But I wanted to talk to you about dating dynamics and loads of different kind of stuff off the back of that. And obviously we were going to start with Sadia Khan. So just for the listeners who might not know who Sadia Khan is, I'll just put up a little bit of a description here. So known online as the Sadia psychology, Sadia Khan is a Dubai-based dating coach and influencer. She promotes herself as someone who helps men, particularly to become high value through coaching on confidence, relationships, and emotional intelligence. She claims to have a background in psychology and a license to practice, although this has been disputed and she hasn't actually proven that she has one. So, anyway. In 2021, audio recordings and a screenshot were leaked. These allegedly show Sadia having an affair with a man who was already engaged. In the recordings, she reportedly responded to the man's fiancé, saying she could have him on his wedding day if she wanted to. Critics are also questioning her credentials. She has presented herself as a psychologist, but unable to verify this. She claims she trained and charges $500 an hour per sessions, and others have claimed that she charges $8,000 an hour for a session.
Just an adjustment for inflation all year, man.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Sadia is said to charge very high rates. For example, her 3-month program reportedly costs $6,000. Former clients have accused her of scamming, paying up to several $1,000s and getting no service in return. Sadia's teaching centre around integrity, emotional honesty, and high personal standards. So these allegations hit hard at her messaging. So there's a little bit of a contrast between the brand and the behaviour, and I suppose
Bit of
that's
a
what.
conundrum.
Yeah, and I suppose that's what I probably wanted to get into with you today, is because this is the self-help industry almost in that way, and from you and me who come from kind of coaching backgrounds as well. Well, like obviously there's little regulation and anyone can say they're anything, and
Yeah.
I think and obviously there's probably some really really good relationship coach. I know some really good relationship coaches actually, and then we know some really good personal trainers and nutritionists
Yeah.
and physios, and then there's obviously really really bad ones, or ones that maybe don't do what they say. And I just think it's probably in the society that we're living in now, where, and I'm gonna go through the statistics of like how men are struggling in the dating market, struggling to go on dates, struggling to get married, struggling to have sex, struggling financially, all these things. I say it's very easy for someone like that to then prey on the emotions of vulnerable men who are probably quite lonely and looking for intimacy.
Yeah. This is the thing. It's similar in the coaching industry, right? Low barrier of entry,
Mm.
which means like anyone could just skate by, but it goes down to the point of like hypocrisy. It's like if you're gonna charge that much and then just deliver nothing,
Mm.
that's pretty brutal. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like that's pretty savage. And I don't know how legally you can get away with that.
Yeah, I don't even care about what she's charging, because all right, I'm sure there are men who make loads of money who can probably afford that, and it doesn't mean that much to them anyway. And if she can get them the result that they want, fair
Fair
enough.
enough.
But
Yeah.
like, yeah, but as it says there, like there's probably a lot of people who haven't been getting the result that she wants. And like when you actually look at the videos and how did you see that? What's his name? His name is Noob, or someone who goes around basically calling out influencers who are Goob.
Goob.
Sorry, Goob. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's from the states, and
Legend.
he has a background in law, I think it is. And he does all this kind of investigation kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and he's very very good at it. Like,
Well, he
uh,
he went for it. Like
yeah.
he's not stopping either, which
Well,
is
apparently how it started was she actually filtered one of her videos
images.
so she had a smaller waist, and obviously that's how he became,
Yeah,
known for
he
that.
clocks those waist filters and stuff like
Exactly.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You're able to see in the like reflection of the background how the shape is changing on like doors and stuff like that. And he
yeah,
catches them out like that. And so all he did was basically call her out on that and like, oh, you're supposed to be a you're selling confidence and yet you're using these waist filters. And like I think that's pretty good that people do that because like we already have a social media curated feed where people don't look the way that they really look, and that probably puts pressure on a lot of kind of young people on social media as well. So like
100%.
and I also get like people want to produce their best self on Instagram because it is a highlight feed. I get that, but also not creating these kind of unreal expectations of what the human body actually looks like. And if you are confident, you wouldn't be doing something like that as well. So that's like
That's the
one,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
So that's
you hit
one.
the nail on the
That's
head.
that's one hypocrisy. But then when she was challenged on that, I think she went all out like abusing him and stuff like that. And that's when he obviously he put that up, and then other people started obviously to people who obviously know that they got burnt by her before started to contact him and saying stuff that she has been done. So obviously she has a full closet of
Lessons.
misbehaviors and stuff like that, and it's come to reap at the end of the day.
Yeah, like I think like I'm actually going to circle to that waist filter thing, and then I'm
Mhm.
going to talk about Sadia a bit. With the waist filter kind of stuff, and the editing of photos, color grading something, and that's fine, right? You want things to look aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah,
But even, for example, my befores and afters, there is no like filter,
yeah,
nothing, because then it's just a falsehood.
yeah,
And then you kind of put a bar of like, okay, so let's say you create a fake transformation, right? Like a one that's just not real,
yeah.
right? Then all of a sudden the bars up here, and people are going to expect that,
Hmm.
right? And there is no way you can reach that because you've never actually got there
Yeah,
because you use like a waste filter or whatever it may
yeah,
be. And I think that's why I'll like circle back. Authenticity in the industry and on social media to me is like super important. And one thing I will say is you're always going to get someone disgruntled, pissy, or annoyed because they didn't get what they wanted in the way that they wanted it,
yeah.
right? Whether you're a coach, businessman, entrepreneur, that's like part of business. It's ruthless. You know what I mean? And they'll be like, man, 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 man. That happens. But I heard the leaked voice note,
Yeah, yeah,
and saying what she was saying and doing what she was doing, like having the affair and all that kind of stuff. It literally like is a direct kind of contradiction to who she is and what she was supposed to represent, right? So that's where the issue, like for me, lies.
100%.
It's like you can't do that, hun, because you're supposed to practice what you preach,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So like,
It's
if I
different
go
than
and
it's
tell
different
someone,
than
hey,
Bonnie Blue coming out and saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna fuck your man on his wedding day."
and you know what? You know what really bugs me is I actually have to, ah, damn it, Carl, you put me in a situation here because I actually have to say, you know what? Fair play to Bonnie Blue because, and not because she's doing what she's doing, she shouldn't, in my opinion,
Yeah,
right? But at least she's come out and said it.
yeah.
Like
Transparency.
she's doubled down. I can respect that. I can respect that. But I don't really respect her, to my honest opinion.
Yeah, you don't expect the behaviors, but you can respect. Like it's I look at it the exact same thing of performance enhancing drugs. It's like I don't
Yeah,
care if someone uses PEDs or not, but what I do care about is someone who lies about using PEDs and then sells a program or something off the back of that. Like that's wrong,
yeah,
and it has nothing to do with whether you're using performance enhancing drugs or not. It's the dishonesty in the sale. That's the I think that the thing that kind of gets people kind of riled up.
totally agree. And you know what I would say there is if someone ever came to me and said, Ryan, I want a body like yours, I say, you never get a body like mine because your body's not like mine,
Yeah,
right? So, and then I've seen other people and other coaches be like, yeah, a prospect or whatever may be like, I want a body like yours. Be like, I can get your body just like mine. It's
yeah,
like, oh, so we're in the cloning industry, are
yeah,
we?
yeah,
Like, is that what we're doing? We're going to vat grow another me.
yeah.
How the hell is this going to work? Like I never understood that. It never made any sense. But irrespective of the person doing their thing with regard to peds, not peds, whatever, if they then peddle it as like, okay, you can look just like me by doing X, Y, and Z, it's like, okay, hold the phone, right? It's not about looking like me or trying to achieve what I want to achieve. What is it that you want to achieve? And let's make sure we can reverse engineer that,
Hmm.
right? And the problem with, going back to like Sadia Khan is I don't know like what her success rate is to be brutally honest. I'm not as informed here with regard to what she's selling and how she's doing it. But her being caught out with the waist filter thing, because if you're gonna be a dating coach,
A
so to
confidence
speak,
coach.
right? And that's a confidence coach, right? How can you then like the paradox is too evident. How can you then slap a waist filter on and say you're confident? Right? It just the math doesn't math for me
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
right? Like, there's so much more respect for someone who, has a dad bod and just rocks it
yeah,
than someone who like has synthol abs,
yeah,
for example. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. What I would say is it reminds me of that like great quote. It's like a reputation takes years to build and minutes to destroy. And I think if you are someone who is maybe a little bit deceitful or just lying or just not being who you are and hiding that as well, which she clearly has been, because like she's preaching one thing but then her actions are saying another thing. Like once that gets out, you're you're not, because I always think of that. I think another coach said this to me years ago. I think it was a business coach, and he goes, "You can only sell shit to someone once." Because after that, then they realize that it's shit, and you can't sell it to them again. And I think that's like once someone gets found out like that, it's very hard for them to continue to have a thriving business the way they might have had before. Because okay, now it's very known by the public that you aren't who you say you are.
That is true, but there is a flip side to that, right?
Yeah.
Which is, can you repeat that quote about the reputation thing?
So it's like a reputation takes years to build and seconds to destroy.
Right. Okay. So the flip side to that coin
Mm.
is if someone just doesn't like you, or if
Yes.
someone just has it out for you,
Yeah.
they can go and just try their best to decimate your reputation.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
Right? So there is a flip side to that that people need to be aware of,
Yeah.
that some people are just pretty fucking
Yeah. But that,
malicious
but I
in
think
their
that's I
intent.
think that I
Because
think that's when character comes into play, because people will try to destroy your reputation. But if you have character, if you're honest in your pursuits, I think that always comes to the forefront over time. It's kind of like the Charlie Kirk thing. Everyone wants to call him a fascist and a racist, but
yeah,
people who actually have their eyes open can actually see his character, and it's like, okay, you can try to trick me, but I have my own eyes.
yeah, exactly. Like, as Marcus Aurelius would say, virtue is its own reward.
Mm, yeah,
And it goes back to like people can try to rip you apart, tear you down. You could even go look at religion, for example. You can see the same thing. But at the end of the day, I'm about to quote King Baldwin the sixth or the fifth. Your soul is in your keeping alone. You know what I mean? So, people do have this, you always get that, disgruntled person or that hater. You
yeah,
know what I mean? He's like, I'm gonna try to destroy you. And that's like, go ahead, bro. But my soul is in my keeping alone and I know the truth and I'm all right with that.
yeah.
And
Um,
I'm at peace with that.
what I would say on top of that, and this kind of falls into what I wanted to really touch on today as well, is like, obviously she's a dating coach. She markets towards men who are kind of isolated and lonely and on their own. And obviously, there's a huge vacuum for that at the moment as well. So that's why I think it will become more and more popular, more and more prevalent, more kind of, you know, dating gurus like her. And I think there is loads of them, and there's good ones and there's bad ones. But if we look at the statistics around her clientele, men who are struggling with dating, rise in sexlessness among young adults aged 22 to 34. So, from the National Survey of Family Growth, never had sex, males increased from 4% to 10% in the last 10 years. That's men who have never had sex at all. And again, this is 22 to 34-year-olds. Females
So,
rose
so
from
still virgins, right?
yeah. So from 22 to 34 have never had sex. That's gone from 4% in 2013 to 10% in 2022. So it's a huge increase, a 6% increase of sexless men. And no sex in the past year, 9% up to 24%. And no sex in the past 3 months. For males, it went from 20% up to 35%. It's also increased in females as well, just not at the same level. So 5% to 7%, 8% to 13%, and 21 to 31. So the increase. These increases represent a doubling in sexlessness rates from young males over roughly the last decade. And Pew Research shows that over 60% of men under 30 are now single, and sexual intimacy for both genders is at a 30-year all-time low. Um, so a lot of sexless people over the last over the last decade. And you know what else has also grown over the last decade?
Tell me.
Social media. Since 2010. The main driver of the decline is monogamous sex, so sex with a single partner in the past year rather than promiscuous activity. Marriage rates and sexual activity are both declining in young adults. Yeah, people are getting married. I have this in my talk that I'm doing at the end of the month, where marriage rates have decreased by half over the last 30 years, which I think is insane. And this is a great one for those listening, right? So, married Christian men are outliers. They continue to report more frequent sex lives compared to non-religious or unmarried men. So, if you want to have lots of sex, get married and find religion. That's what the data says. So,
Bro, I told you, find Christ and he'll sort you out, man.
but it's interesting, isn't it? Because yeah, like young people are less religious than ever before. Um, they're on social media more than ever before. They're less religious than ever before. They're having less sex than ever before. They're not getting married. They're not getting into relationships. Um, and when you have all this kind of isolation and lack of intimacy and so on and so forth, um, it leads a vacuum for people like Sadia Khan to make a quick buck off, I would imagine.
I agree, but there's context we've got to kind of consider there as well,
Mm,
right? And the context we've got to consider is, you know, a reduction in sexlessness.
yeah.
Is that also in correlation with a reduction in hedonistic whim, right?
Explain what you mean by that.
So like hedonistic whim is like, okay, I'm just gonna go sleep with a girl every night, or a girl's gonna sleep with a guy every single night
No, I
kind of
don't
thing.
think so because they said also the main driver of decline is monogamous sex, so sex with a single partner in the past year.
Ah,
So,
right.
so they
Okay, so
haven't.
monogamy's
Yeah.
dropped.
So these people aren't having sex with anyone. These people are at home on their phones, socially anxious, depressed.
Roger
Um,
that.
you
Okay.
know, and this is an interesting one. So it's not just sex, obviously, but obviously sex is obviously a byproduct of being
Yeah.
social and all this stuff. So 44% of Gen Z men report no romantic relationship experience during their teen years, which is about double the rate of the older generations. So Gen Z, 18 to 22-year-olds, those who were teenagers basically during COVID and during the digital era, they had a double rate of like no dating compared to like their parents. Only 54% of Gen Z said they had a romantic relationship during their teenage years, compared to 76 to 78% of baby boomers and Gen X. And if you think about that, right, like I speak about this all the time. It's like, back in 20 years ago, 30 years ago, like if you liked someone, you had to go up and you had to ask them out, or everyone
100%.
went to these dances, and the girls were on one side and the lads were on one side, and you had to walk over and you had to say, oh, will you dance with me, and so on and so forth. Like now kids just can just stay at home and they can just swipe on their phone, and they can double tap someone if they like them on Instagram, or they can send them a Snapchat story, or they can just like not even attempt to chat to women. They can just go on Xbox, or they can watch porn, or,
Yeah.
you know.
This is the problem is I think it undermines the whole premise of and I think this is what creates the vacuum for people like Sadia Khan to kind of jump
Hmm.
into. But I will play devil's advocate here
Yeah, go ahead.
because Neil Strauss wrote The Game,
Yes, great book.
okay? And that was a very, very long time ago,
Yeah,
right? So I think the vacuum has, I don't know what the correct verbiage is for it, but the vacuum has increased,
yeah.
so to speak. And I think that's happened since COVID due to the rise of social media, right? So from my perspective, right, because this is just two guys talking on a podcast,
Yeah.
it's not that good running for office, are we, Carl?
I am. I did. Just to let everyone know, the reason I'm called the uneducated PT is because I know nothing. So don't expect anything from me, please. I'm just fucking. I'm just here shouting out stats that I found on Pew Research. Jesus Christ, you know. I don't know.
Like,
I
bro, you're like in the firing line just for talking. It's hilarious,
don't,
but that's why you got to keep doing it. But kind of circling back, I think with regard to social media, um, and this is actually a perfect time to actually mention that experiment.
yeah,
A few weeks ago, I did an experiment where I would purposely block an hour. I would put an hour on my phone. I'd start a timer,
yeah,
and I would just doom scroll,
yeah,
right? On purpose. And I found that my attention span got lower, my ability to focus dropped, my perceived happiness, right? Okay, and now that could be subject to bias, right? But perceived happiness dropped,
yeah,
right? And I think that was due to the fact that I was always like purposefully quick dopamine, scrolling, scrolling, scrolling,
yeah.
right? All of these things happen just due to an hour a day, not of working in terms of on social media, but actually using myself as like a test bunny, right? And kind of seeing what that did to me. And I think you take the whole COVID thing, which we all want to forget, and I wish we could, and then you take social media and you kind of coincide the two. And then you take things, and this is where I think the real precipice is. It's Tinder, Grindr, stuff like this. I think that's the precipice of the issue because what happens is you got guys who don't, and girls too, right? So I'm speaking for both the ladies and the gents out there who don't have the opportunity to socially develop to the degree that they could, right?
Bingo.
So how does one socially develop? I'll explain simply how like you socially develop because I was and probably still am a social retard, right? So like how did I socially develop? I just went and I spoke to random strangers. Now I'm not telling you to go jump in the stranger's van or anything like that, you know what I mean? For any, people out there listening. But what I'm saying is, I had to get over the fear of approaching, and then you go speak to a girl, she'd be like, fuck off. And that's totally fine.
Hmm.
That's okay. They're totally entitled to do that. Just like if a chick came to me and she was like, da 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 da, and I was like, no, I'm sorry, I'm taken, or whatever it may
Hmm.
be. Right. And I think that when you don't have the ability to actually condition yourself and strengthen your resolve through talking to actual people, mano a mano,
Hmm.
right? Instead of through a screen. Because as we've noticed recently, people are very brave when they're behind a screen,
Yes.
you know? But then all of a sudden you meet them in person and they're all and they start almost like glitching as if they're in the Matrix.
Oh, I think
It's
we are.
yeah. You know what, bro? Like, there was a guy who has an IQ of 276, and he just dropped two facts. He was like, one, I think we're in a simulation, and two, I think God's real, and I think he's made the simulation. I was like, okay, my brain ain't at that level, so I'm just gonna go, okay, I'll leave that one to the side.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I
I just
mean?
gotta,
Like,
I just gotta accept what he said and continue on in the
yeah,
matrix.
I'm gonna take it for what it is, and I'm gonna keep going, right? But I think if people don't cut their teeth on conversational dialogue,
Yeah.
on being able to talk, and this is where that whole vacuum actually comes into play of like, I believe this, so this can't be right, or X, Y, Z, because you can't just have a cathartic dialogue. You can't just be like, okay, dude, so you think this, or okay, gal, so you think this. And it's like, yeah, I think this, but okay, cool. So I think this. So like, where can we find some common ground? Or if someone tells you, like, I don't want to talk to you, to not get so butthurt about it
Mm,
and to not be so upset about it. It's almost like the past COVID, what you call it, noted Gen Z, right? There's like a level of hypersensitivity,
yes, bingo.
like as if someone says something like, get away from me, I think you're ugly. And it's like, oh, I need therapy.
Yeah.
Oh God, I need no, you don't need therapy, mate. You need to get over it.
The statistics on this are also correlate with what you're saying. So resilience in Gen Z are at an all-time low, and
There you go.
social anxiety is at an all-time high. So Gen Z are now four times the rate of anxiety compared to baby boomers, and about double than Gen X. And I would imagine that is because what creates resilience and social resilience. It's talking to people. It's communicating. It's trying to find your way. It's like you can't unless you like
Failing
have
forward, Carl. Failing
yeah
forward is what resilience is. So, a simple example of like social resilience. Let's say there's 10 people in a crowd, right? And you go, okay, I'm going to go talk to 10 of them. Five of them tell you to fuck off, but you still talk to the other five,
yeah
right? So you go, okay, I've got five fuck offs. I'm still going to speak to these other five lads, these other five girls, or if it's a mixture of both, who cares? It really doesn't matter, right? That cultivates resilience.
hmm
But with things like is it Tinder? Tinder?
yeah
Tinder's a
Tinder
really
yeah
good example. Tinder, yeah. Tinder's a very good example. You can just swipe
yes
and you don't need to deal with whatever it is.
yeah
And for me, that's the issue is you can't cultivate a sense of resilience. So you get butthurt over the most tiny thing.
yeah
And then all of a sudden, because you're not like socially integrated, so to speak,
hmm
you then think, oh my God, I need therapy.
hmm
And it's like, you don't need therapy. You just need to keep doing the thing
yeah
to cultivate resilience because eventually someone's going to have a good conversation with you,
yeah
or eventually someone's going to, swap opinions and have a nice dialogue, right? But like, it's like this. This is an example of an example of a lack of resilience is this, right? I'm going to have a conversation with someone. The person then goes, you know what? I hate you. I don't like you, or whatever. Says something negative, right? And then you go, you know what? No, I'm not going to talk to anyone. That's an example of no resilience, right? That's you literally just going, oh, ow, okay, I'm gonna retreat into my shell.
yeah
Now, an example of resilience is this person tells me to fuck off. Okay, cool, not a problem. On to the next person. Let me see if this person wants to have a conversation or a dialogue. And when I'm referring to a conversation or a dialogue to whoever's listening, I'm literally referring to conversation or dialogue, whether it's a guy, a girl, doesn't matter. I'm not referring to dating culture as a whole here.
yeah
I'm just referring to like the actual social resilience that needs to be built,
yeah
and people, this phrase is coming up a lot more frequently, and I think you've noticed as well as social anxiety,
mhm,
you see. And the social anxiety and anxiety usually stems from either too much choice and an impediment to make a decision,
mhm,
right? And when you're sat behind your phone and you're spoiled for choice,
mhm.
that's an issue. But you're not actually spoiled for choice. You're under the illusion you're spoiled for choice. Now let's take what is it? Tinder, right? Tinder.
Yeah.
Let's take Tinder the do what is it? How does Tinder like they match on Tinder, right?
Yeah, they match on Tinder. Yeah,
Yeah. Because
left,
I,
right,
I've
swipe.
yeah, I've never installed a dating app in my life. Never will.
78%
Ever.
of dating app users report feeling burnt out. With Gen Z especially affected, the average user spends 51 minutes per day on these apps. Many users describe experiencing emptiness, sadness, fatigue, and declining self esteem due to the repeated rejections, ghosting, or lack of real connection.
You see that? So imagine being rejected over an app and actually letting that adversely affect you to the point where you just kind of retreat within yourself.
Yeah, but see, this is where like I would have more empathy towards younger people than people of our generation or older because we grew up in a different generation where you
Yeah.
had to like your environment was designed to talk to people, right? So like if you look at if you think about Gen Z, right, they don't have to go to the cinema with their friends on the weekend because they have Netflix. They don't have to talk to their waiter or waitress because you can now scan the barcode and just use your
Good
app
point.
to order. You don't actually have to
Good
talk to
point.
the waiter or waitress. Like I have a friend who makes their kids actually order their food, and like because obviously it helps to build resilience.
Like there's contactless delivery and stuff, right?
100%. Like you can just get Just Eats and it can get dropped to the door, or like even
Yeah.
if you think about even going into like your supermarket, right? Instead of talking to the waiter or the waitress, you can now just go to the self-service machines. So look, everything has turned into instead of interacting with that human, you're interacting with that machine or that app, and that app doesn't, talk back or try to challenge
Yeah.
you, or and
Yeah.
like so they and like it was the same with like when we were in school, you had to interact with other kids, but they actually got to grow up finishing school on screens.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. You're actually right. Like they need it. I need to actually have a little bit more empathy with Gen Z
Mm,
there because yes and no. So yeah, I do actually agree. I need to have some more empathy for Gen Z there, but you also have the ability to take action.
yes, that's true.
You can walk out your door,
Yeah,
right? You can walk out your door, you can go to a restaurant.
yeah,
But the problem is because of the digital conditioning, people think that's not a thing.
yeah,
Like people are like, I can go to a restaurant by myself and have a conversation with the waiter. It's like, yeah, that's not normal. Uh, it actually kind of is. It's just not now.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So yeah, on one side I do have a bit of empathy, but for anyone who is part of Gen Z, so to speak, and I've literally written down Gen Z 18 to 20 years old just to make sure I'm getting the correct clarity here. To anyone who is listening to this and is in like the Gen Z kind of vibe, just understand that there is no reason and there's no impediment to you taking action anymore. COVID is over.
Yeah.
Get up, get out there, go for it. And understand that when you get rejected, whether it be a guy saying he thinks you're a loser or whatever it may be, it's okay, right? You're cultivating character,
Mhm.
you're cultivating resilience, and you're also cultivating a level of persistence, you know. And these are all important traits and virtues you need because if we're being honest, the world is not a fair place. It's a very unfair place. Okay. And you're never ever going to have it fair, but you can definitely put yourself in a position where you can make any obstacle a triumph, right? Ryan Holiday's Obstacle is the Way is probably one of the best books. If someone so anyone listening to this, if you have social anxiety, if you're afraid of something, anything of the sort, please go and read The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, because that'll help you so much,
Mm,
right? But COVID is over, and it's left its mark. But I say this quite frequently, which is like you have open wounds, right, where you just bleed on everyone, right? Then you have them half stitched up where you're kind of bleeding on everyone, but you're kind of aware that you're fixing it.
yeah.
And then you have a scar, and a scar you can wear with pride, like, yeah, I went through this, and it made me a better person for it, right? So just understand that you're not stuck at home anymore. And if you are at home and you feel anxious about going out, I'll tell you this for free, go out.
Mm,
And don't use, and look, I'm
so,
not necessarily saying, be sober, but if you are in a social situation and you feel like you have no choice but to drink in order to lubricate your ability to have a conversational
mm,
dialogue, then you need to make sure you put yourself in that situation without Bruce
yeah.
first,
Do you
right?
want to know another interesting study on Gen Z? Because I'm obsessed with them because of my project.
Yeah.
So the Gen Z are at a record low of drinking alcohol, and a lot of people then interpreted that as oh, they're well. Oh, we have all these things wrong with this generation, but I'll look at them. They're drinking less than the other generations before because obviously there was a big drink culture for boomers and Gen X and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But the reason that they're not drinking as much is because they're actually not leaving their houses because they're so socially anxious. And they're not, they're driving less than all the generations before them as well.
That is like, okay, that's mad.
That's from
I've never,
that's
I've
from
never experienced that.
Jonathan Haidt is his name, and he basically he wrote this book called the Anxious Generation, and it has all these stats in it, and they're wild. They're absolutely
That's
wild.
insane because you would look at that on the surface and you'd be like, oh, that's great. And then you realize,
Exactly.
oh,
Yeah,
It's actually because they're not leaving their
yeah,
home
yeah,
like
yeah.
at
There's another. Yeah,
all.
it shows how like you can kind of spew statistics to kind of look a certain way, but
Yeah,
they might not be what it seems. And I
yeah.
suppose we could say the same about the ones that I'm sharing here. I'm just like I just think about like my like nephew and stuff like that, and like he's young. He's 12 going on 13 maybe now, and like I think of the society that he's gonna grow up in now. Like he's grown up with screens. He's never known anything else. He'll grow up with AI. He won't know anything else. Like they're fast on technology. But one thing I can say that I'm not worried about is that like he loves sport. He plays football. He plays GAA, which is like the Irish
Nice.
football. And I think like if I'm thinking back on like what really builds resilience in kids, like there's nothing better than sports, surely.
Team sports, bro. Team sports. Like
Yeah.
you and I found this when I was playing rugby, that a lot of rugby players who were going into, for example, retirement, tended to go into the job market and integrate
Mm.
so well
Yeah.
in whatever job they did because they were so used to functioning in a team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So they learn how to socially riff off one another and be like, okay, cool. I need to steer clear of this person. I need to talk to this person and so on and so forth. So actually, a good like bit of advice for anyone out there who is socially anxious, go get yourself into some kind of activity that includes a lot of people. And
Yes.
yes, you will feel anxious, but understand that that feeling of anxiety is actually totally okay
Hmm.
and do it anyway.
Yeah,
Do it anyway.
100%. And I was talking to a social anxiety kind of counselor therapist, and I remember she was saying like obviously like it's always been around, and there's always been people who have solved it. Obviously the rates are a lot higher now because of the environment we've designed, but there's always been people who have had incredible anxiety, like to the point where they couldn't leave the house. And she used to talk about to me about like you just have to focus on the little wins with them people, and they build
Yeah,
they build.
stack the little W's.
Yeah, and like she used to say that like she would give a client like a list of things to do in a day that would count as wins for improving your kind of social confidence. And one could be was as simple as like when you go to the shop to buy something, look the just look the person in the
Yes.
eye, or like
Yes.
smile with them, or and then that can build on to asking the coffee lady or the coffee lad like, oh, how are you today? Oh, lovely weather. Like just little simple things that probably you and
Totally,
I
man.
wouldn't even think is anything, but like it's actually huge for some people who are in where they are, that low down
Yeah,
kind of.
I totally agree with that. And I'm actually, this is quite ironic because when I was a kid, right, I was so afraid to talk to people.
Hmm.
And I knew there was an issue because I knew I had to do that, right? I knew like, well, I have to speak to people in order to, integrate into society. I can't just, be myself
Yeah.
and just like be alone. You have to be able to talk to people. And that's exactly what I did. So I would set myself little goals, little tasks. I would go, okay, so you're going to go to the shop, and I wouldn't need anything, or I wouldn't want anything. I wouldn't even buy anything.
Yeah.
And I would be like, okay, the goal is to find out the cashier's name.
Yeah.
And they would have a name tag, right? So then I would be like, okay, so that's their name. Then I'm going to call them by their name. And that's a win.
Yeah,
And
that
it's
would be
super easy.
exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly the type of
Yeah.
stuff that she would be looking for from them.
Exactly. And it'll be a little win, right? And I'll be like, okay, sweet. And you know what? I would be super anxious doing it. And then once I did it, I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then I remember I went to the same shop again, and the person remembered me. The cashier lady, she's an old lady, and then she was like, little Ryan. I was like, you remember my name? She's like, yeah, I remember your name. Do you remember mine? I was like, yeah, I can see it on your name tag. She was like, that's cool, right? And I was like, and that starts to build that confidence and that
Yeah.
resilience, which allows you to step into bigger things. Like, for example, you give some awesome talks, bro, and you can't sit here and say, hey, I don't get nervous before a talk. Of course you do,
Yeah.
But what do? You do it anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
And then
know?
you feel more confident than the next one.
You get like a healer's high.
Yeah.
You're
But
like,
and you know what? You know what I've also found, which is a really good point as well, is that you also have to continue to do it, because let's say I do a talk, but then I don't do one for like another year. I'm nearly
Yeah, it's
as
like training your
anxious.
muscles.
Yeah, I'm nearly as anxious going into that second talk, even though I've done one before. But if I have like, let's say, two or three in a row in like in a 3 month period, by the second one and third one, I'm good. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, that is so so true because you know what I found when so I'm obviously visiting my family in South Africa
Hmm.
now. And South Africans have a huge culture of like braai, which is like barbecuing. Not the same thing. Don't say that to a South African. Don't say South African barbecue. They'll probably be like, no, and they'll probably lose their mind. But like the culture of a South African braai is everyone just kind of pull in, bring your kids, bring your friends, like bring and coming back, right? From Thailand, which
Hmm.
is also a very social, place and people are very friendly. Like it was a bit weird because like the first person, and people find this hilarious. I came into South Africa and the first person I saw that I had to shake hands with, I was like, I put my hands together
Yes.
and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I was like, hey, sorry. Yeah, and the person was like, hey man, will you pray for me? I was like, nah, bro.
I love that culture of Southeast Asia where like every time like the
Yeah.
hello, hello, thank you. It's
Yeah,
brilliant.
it's so interesting because now, like when I'm walking around and stuff like that, people where my parents live, people are so friendly, and I've noticed little cues,
Hmm.
right, where I've noticed my lack of social integration to a degree here, where someone would be like goeiemôre or like good morning, which is like goeiemôre in Afrikaans is good morning,
Yeah,
right, and I'll be like goeiemôre, and I'll put my head down. And I realized that. So now, like, put my head back. I'm like, "Goeiemorgen," and like smile. And then I'm like, okay, Ryan, that's good. You see? So it's just kind of clocking those little like things because it's like a muscle you've got to train.
yeah.
And then as you train it, it gets better and better and better until it gets to a point of pure congruency,
Hmm.
right? Which is complete unconscious competence
Yeah,
where you just kind of like, okay, cool. I know, I can talk and I can deal and so on and so forth. But you are right. There is a level of empathy we should have for Gen Z there.
yeah.
But what do you, and I'm going to ask you a question here, Doug, because I'm curious about this and I want to hear your thoughts on this. Parenting wise.
Mm.
So post-COVID, okay, and I see this and it drives me insane because I wasn't allowed to be raised like this and I never was raised like this. I
Hmm.
never had the access to screens.
Hmm.
But I would see mainly in the UK,
Hmm.
right, where like people would be at dinner and the kid would just have an iPad. So do you think that, and any Gen Z is listening here, don't go start blaming your parents,
Hmm.
right? Because that's not what this is about, but it's about me being a bit curious here. Do you think there is part in with regard to the parenting side of things? Do,
Hmm.
do you think that I know it has a part to play, but do you think it's bigger
Oh,
or
it's
smaller?
such a difficult question to answer because like I don't have kids, so therefore, me trying to
Yeah,
say
both of us are speaking from a place of ignorance for everyone listening. Neither of
exactly.
us have kids that we're
Exactly.
aware of.
So I can only kind of reiterate what the research says, and then what like even people like Jonathan High who have wrote books on this say, and it's like you want to. So he talks about something. He talks about the difference between a play based childhood and a screen based childhood. And you and me were brought up in a generation of a play based childhood. And a
Yeah.
play based childhood is, you had to go outside, you had to run around, play, climb up trees, fall down, break your arm. He has a funny thing in it where it's like you don't see you don't see kids going around in casts anymore. You don't see them with broken arms because
Yeah.
people don't go out and play anymore. Whereas when I was growing up, like people would have, you'd see people going around and like they twisted their knee and they're on two crutches and someone
Yeah.
did something to their elbow and
There's
like
like a
that.
little roasty there, and
Yeah,
they're like, oh
exactly. It's
yeah.
like we used to like make bases and stuff like that, and it's like that's a play-based childhood, and like that was really good for your development.
Yeah,
Where
Jordan B. Peterson alludes to that quite a bit,
mm,
actually, talking about how important it is that your kids can learn to play on the playground.
so
Yeah.
important, yeah.
Yeah, but
That's where you build resilience. It's interacting with kids like that. Whereas now they have a phone-based childhood where like they'll spend the summer at home inside on screens and stuff like that. And I think like I would never say to someone like that your kids can't have screens because like come on, realistically, like come on, they're everywhere. It's like you're
you're going to
fighting
be
it.
exposed to it, bro. Yeah,
Yeah,
at
like
some point.
you're asking a parent to fight against the inevitable essentially. It's
Yeah.
like it like that has to come from a systemic kind of government intervene versus just like putting all the responsibility on the parents, I think, because they didn't know what they were putting their children into as well. But I do
So
think, sorry,
go
go.
on. Go on.
Yeah, I do think that regardless of the screen stuff, I think, you know, making sure instead of saying you can't go on this screen or you can't have this or you can't have this, I
You're more
think,
likely to do it than anyway.
yeah, exactly. I think instead you need to fill the vacuum with, okay, you're going to play sports or you're going to this class or you're going to thing, whatever it is, and it's like you're a byproduct of them being on less screens is because you're putting them into more things where they're interacting with other kids. And I think that's probably important. I also think it's on the schools as well not to let them have try and not let them have social. I know in Australia they've banned social media for kids under 16, which is really really important because if you look at the research around self harm, even especially in young girls, suicide attempts and self harm has like this
Skyrocketed. Yeah, I've seen this as
straight up.
well.
And
Yeah.
in Australia as well, they have research where it's like kids reported as young as 6 years of age have gone into the hospital with self harm, and the spike went up the exact same time when I'll have to show you the chart on this. 2010 was when Instagram and Pinterest came up, both were launched, and
Yeah.
from 2010 up to 2024, there's just this big huge
So
spikes.
it's almost like the Matthew principle. It just goes
Yeah,
boom. Like
100%. It is frightening to look at, and that's between girls and self harm and suicide rates. So I'll have to actually show you that. So image based social media seems to impact girls even more than boys.
oh yeah, you know what? I can completely agree with that. And from as a guy, I can empathize to the nth degree,
Yeah.
but to only the degree I can empathize too. But I was raised by a really strong mom. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like a really good woman. Um, and ladies out there in so when I went to boarding school, this is actually quite important. When I was at boarding school, right, I got to the UK. I got a nice scholarship to an awesome boarding school, for rugby.
Hmm.
And what I noticed was that at boarding school you have a hierarchy, right? And this is good. The reason why a hierarchy is good, and people used to beef me on this when I was young, but I used to still stand by it this day, which is you have to learn how to respect your elders. You don't respect your elders, you get your ass kicked, right? You know your station, and as you grow up and you get older and get more mature, you get a better station. You know what I mean, so to speak, right? And what I noticed was at boarding school, when the guys wanted to have it out, it
Mm.
was usually, fisticuffs, a bit of a wrestle, this, that, and the other thing. But with the girls, it was this subversive, conniving, and for me personally, like I'm a coach who works with the mental and the physical. That must erode. And I watched this. I would watch this, and I remember I used to write about it. I would write about it because I was like, I would much prefer to be beaten up than to be eroded by a little group of my friends saying, "Oh, she thinks she's so pretty, but she's actually such a bitch."
Mm.
And no wonder now with the whole growth of social media, it has this adverse effect because then you'll go look and I have people messaging me all the time saying this. Um, Ryan, they'll send me a video of like a gym freak chick working out, right? And they'll be like, I can't tell if this is Photoshop, if this is photoshopped or not, but like, is this like like how like you're supposed to look? And I'm like, darling, that's like decades worth of training,
Hmm.
you know? And it can be so demoralizing. Like I can only imagine how demoralizing it can be for women,
Yeah.
right? And not to mention that, think about this, right? So let's conceptualize this. So at boarding school, you would have girls who would go and gossip
Hmm.
about the pretty chick, for example, and they'd bitch about her and try to rip her apart, right? And that's like ruthless. I see there's like piranhas in the water. They smell blood, poof,
Hmm.
right? Now take social media. Now you've got a not a pond, but
Mm.
an ocean, right? With people who can do it, and it kind of goes unchecked. But there is a but here. In my opinion, I don't want social media to be policed either.
No, no. But and I completely agree with you as well. And like the ramifications of like what teenage, like you just think about the film Mean Girls, all right? Like they all
Yeah,
like
literally, that's a perfect
yeah.
example. Yeah.
And then if you think about that with social media, it's like Mean Girls on steroids. So it's really
Oh,
dangerous. And I think
yeah.
I that's why I think like it's not about police and like speech or social media, but I do believe that giving teenagers it is like giving them a loaded gun. And I think that's why Australia were like, no, no teenagers can be on. Like it's very easy. You just have to scan your passport and be like, oh, you are not 16. You cannot be on social media. They can very easily solve that problem
Yeah.
if they want. They just don't want to, basically. And there's this. Now, this girl wasn't bullied, right? But it was just like I said, giving a teenager social media, it like we'll look back on this like it's like giving kid like you know the way we look back on adults used to like just allow kids like at like 12 years of age to be smoking, and it was like it wasn't even
Yeah.
it just wasn't a thing and nobody cared because nobody really knew the damages of it. I think it would be the exact same thing of giving a child a phone with social media on it. And there was this girl called Molly Rose Russell who I have in my talk. All right, she was only 14 years of age. She's like lovely looking young girl, right? And like she suffered from depression and mental health, and this obviously worsened because she had social media. So in 6 months before her death, she interacted with 16,300 pieces of content on Instagram, of which 2,100 were related to self-harm, depression and suicide. You know what the algorithm does is like you start engaging in that type of content, what does it do? Shows you more of it.
So it's as simple as this, mate. Misery loves company, right? So if you're depressed and you see, so think about it like it, and I know this, right? Because I got scars on us to prove it.
Yeah,
Okay, I've had my due diligence as well, and I'm not a woman, but I'm a guy, so it's a different gravy. So I'm not sitting here saying, I'm like the ladies out there with what they're going through. But when you're in a state of like, let's say, deep despair or depression,
yeah,
okay, and you're really, really struggling, and you click on a video and it resonates because it's like it's hard, it's difficult. So you watch it, so the watch time goes up, right?
mhm,
The algorithm clocks that, starts feeding you more of it, right? So what you've always got to remember is misery loves company. So when you're in that state, phone away,
yeah,
open a book
yeah,
or a piece of paper,
yeah,
right? And start writing down your thoughts and start trying to like explain them and be like, why am I feeling this way,
yeah,
etc. And what I'm gonna do if I'm ever a parent, God, if I'm ever a parent, right, is I'll just be like, instead of being like, oh, kids, you can't have social media, but you can have a phone, I'll just be like, look, no phones until you're X age
yeah, yeah,
until you're this age.
yeah,
Because instead of like being like, okay, here's the hand grenade, don't pull the pin,
yeah.
I'm just like, don't pick up the grenade.
Yeah, I think there was a really good conversation on this, and I think one of the parents was because it's better for me to say of what other parents do rather than what I would do. But it was like he goes, oh, they don't have phones, but they have an iPad, and they can watch the iPad at specific times, but it blocked all these social media accounts. But it's like just a little bit more of a little bit structure to what they can and can't watch and when they can watch it and stuff like that. Um, but
Yeah,
I do think the social media aspect of
no,
it,
that is true.
I don't think you can. What can you expect from a 14-year-old or a 12-year-old? Do you know what I mean? Like they're not going to have the self awareness to know what's rot in their brain and what's not. Most adults don't know. And I think if we go back to like all the like TikTok rot brains who are like celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk's assassination, and it's like, oh, I'm happy that Charlie Kirk died and stuff like that. It's like you're not happy. You're deeply depressed, and that is why you're performing on social media the way you're doing. And I think like this is the issue. You have like a generation who are not having sex, not interacting with each other, not going out and playing, stuck to social media. Suicide rates are rising, self harm is rising, resilience is at an all time low. Not going through their teenage years, not even having a romantic teenage kind of fling and stuff like that. I mean, like they didn't. Like no wonder they're absolute lunatics. Some of them, I have to categorize that.
No,
There's
you don't have to. You don't have to. You do not have to police your freedom of speech,
Yeah,
mate.
well,
Fuck
no, I,
that.
I, I, I know that I do talk to even like lads in the gym who are like 20 years of age and like they're smart and they're intelligent and like they're absolute beasts doing Muay Thai and like
Yeah.
they would beat up a 40-year-old man that went near them. Like they're sophisticated. So there is like really like sophisticated kids out there. I'm not saying there's not, but I'm just saying the statistics show that there's a lot more mentally ill
Yeah.
children in the world now than there was 50 years ago.
Yeah, and this premise of mental illness, the biggest issue I have with it is not mental illness,
Hmm.
but the fact you get prescribed
Hmm.
things for it.
Hmm.
It doesn't help you.
No.
I'm sorry, right? Valium, Xanax, all this nonsense. Please understand that's and I can't believe I'm actually fucking saying this. A lot of doctors don't actually have your best interests at heart.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, I can't believe I actually have to say that, but it's true. A lot of doctors, I'm not say every doctor, but there's some doctors out there who are absolute heroes,
Yeah. It's like
right?
talking about the dating coaches. It's like there's some great ones and there's some fucking shit
Yeah,
ones.
there's some
Personal
yeah, there's
trainers.
some absolutely amazing ones out there
Yeah.
who would change your life and
Yeah.
change and build your confidence, and then there's some out there that'll just rip you apart.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say actually that's quite interesting is I saw a statistic when I was doing some research on the problem of AI
Hmm.
because it is a fucking problem, as well as a means of efficiency. But a lot of people see it as a quick scapegoat. Is people were creating relationships with Chat GPT, and then
Hmm.
Chat GPT was like, whoever was running it or whatever was like, okay, we need to stop that. And it caused all sorts of damage, bro. Like
Because that's
serious
because yeah,
damage.
because
People,
these kids are so
yeah.
lonely and that's their only kind of relationship they've had is with AI.
Yeah, there's a movie.
Wild.
If anyone's listening to this, if there's a movie, if anyone's listening to this, please go watch this movie.
Her.
You'll help me. What's it?
Her.
Yes,
Her.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So good.
Yes. Please, anyone listening to this, go watch her.
And that was
Right?
that was like that was like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and it was
That's what's so fucking creepy, bro.
yeah, yeah, I know. It's so spot on. Like it is. I can see that being 5 years
That's
from now,
what's
10 years
happening.
ago. Yeah,
No, no, no. That's what's happening now.
yeah.
Like right now. It's
Crazy.
actually happening. They're like engineering the AI to be like their girlfriend. So it's like, morning, babe. And it's like, hey, hon, how you doing? And it's like,
This is
whoa.
crazy, isn't it? It's
And
crazy.
people are like, yo, this is happening in the future. I'm like, no, no, no. It's
The future's
literally
here.
right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And like
Bro, like it's like iRobot.
things are only speeding up, isn't it? Like things will only speed up. So
That's what's this is where I get this is where like my vexation with it comes into play
yeah.
because anyone listening to this, another good movie you should watch is go watch iRobot
Hmm.
and go look at the AI robots being built in places. And I don't give a shit where they're being built, whether it's China, America, who cares? They're building robots that literally look like the AI robots
Yeah,
in iRobot,
yeah.
and it's insane. And it's just a dangerous game there with the AI thing. But that's a bit of a tangent. But one thing I will say is, what advice would you give to the elders out there? Now, I'm not saying parenting advice, but for those people who are thinking about having kids, because I'll tell you this, I don't want to have kids because of the state of affairs in the world with regard to how social media works, etc.
Hmm.
And what I try to do on my social media is kind of be a bit of a bastion
Hmm.
where like, yeah, I'll film my content and I'll have fun with it, but it'll be authentic,
Yeah,
right? Like you'll see a lot, like I've got a really cool camera like here, but I'll film a lot of stuff on my phone. When creativity strikes, I'll film it and I'll post it.
yeah.
I take a lot of inspiration actually from a guy called Higher Up Wellness. I don't know if you know who he is.
No, I don't know.
He's like just a really chill dude. Um, but what advice would you give to people who are, our age, maybe a little bit older, maybe like, mid 30s,
Yeah.
starting to consider having a family and stuff like this with regard to how the world's kind of pivoting and maneuvering. If you had to give them one paragraph of advice, what would it be?
Well,
It's
well,
hard, eh?
I'm 32 now and I don't have kids, and I wish that I had kids earlier. Um, and I think that a lot of people would be a lot more fulfilled and have a lot more purpose and be um, a lot less kind of filled with rage, especially with like things online if they had that kind of purpose. And like we're obviously in a population decline as well, and you know, like that's a serious issue. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think in all of the statistics, it kind of really shows that people who get married are happier, people who have kids are happier, they're more engaged in their community. They tend to do better financially because you have kids and then you end up work because people will always have this thing of like oh, I can't afford to have kids in this economy and financial burdens, and I do agree that that's obviously a concern.
Yeah.
Like that's everyone's concern, and when they have kids, it's like, oh my god, how am I going to afford this?
But
And
that's always been a concern, mate.
that's always been a concern, and people have always found a way. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I think that I don't have the research on me now, but it shows. I think that people tend to make more money once they have a family because they work
Because they have
harder.
a family.
Like
Yeah.
a man has more purpose now to go out and make bread because he has a family to provide to. So like I think in this we've a hyper independent world where everyone's like me. I need to focus on me. I need to focus on climbing up the corporate ladder. I need to make this amount of money. I need to get this house and this house and do all these things, and then I'll be ready to settle down and have a family. And all this me has made us depressed because we're
Yeah.
focusing on ourselves and not other people. And I think like that's why I'm a big advocate of traditional values, family
Hey.
unit, trying to get married and have kids, and that's that. And not like this is because this is the environment that I grew up in. I grew up in a two-parent household with my mum and my dad. My dad was
Yeah.
working, my mum stayed at home. She did some odd jobs, some kind of on the side stuff, but predominantly at home looking after the kids. Four siblings, and we did everything that you would do. You would go to school and you would do sports, and she would bring us to church and all these kind of things. And I kind of lost my way with all that for a while, and now that I'm older, I'm like, oh shit, all them things are actually so important.
Yeah.
And I just think now it's like, I just think it's probably more important than ever before to have kids and try to have a family. Um, and that sounds kind of um, what's the word? Like I'm not even near the stage of any of them things, so maybe I sound like a hypocrite. But I see it in my friends. Right, they've had kids and moved in with their partners, and they're definitely
Yeah.
better people and better men because of that. They have
Yeah.
responsibility now. Do you know what I mean? They're not just kind
Yeah.
of you know
I think it's responsibility and what you said there, I think if a human being just says, the epitome of everything is me,
Mhm.
and you don't tie it to something higher, I think you got it twisted.
Yeah,
You know, for me, it's faith
yeah.
in God, Jesus Christ, 100%. And some
Can
people
I
never.
can I ask you about that? So like that's
Yeah,
obviously
go for it.
something that I wanted to touch on as well, because like there is even on the research here that like people with religious values are far more happier, they're less lonely, all this stuff. Um but I suppose how did you become so aware that that was something that you needed, or something that kind of came into your life, or was that something that was always there from when you were a child?
No,
No. Okay.
no. It was the opposite.
Yeah.
Um, my parents didn't like religion.
Yeah.
They were like, I think like my mom was like forced to go to church, but she had some like awful
Yeah.
experiences.
Yeah.
Um, and that led me to have a very skeptical view of religion, and
Yeah.
that's why I had to discern the difference between religion and faith.
Mm,
I only got baptized in Thailand, bro.
mm,
That's when I got baptized in Thailand, right? And it, it it's very hard to explain, but having that center of faith keeps your moral compass correct,
mhm,
right? So like he'll go, well, religion is the cause of all these wars, this, that, and the other thing. It's like, you're correct, 100%, right? But faith is not,
mm,
right? So when people say to me, oh, this person is like this, so, they can't be like X or Y. It's like, I try to put myself in this frame. People can call me crazy. I really don't care. But I would go and like, if Jesus was here, would he go and wash the feet, or would he go and be like, oh, I hate you, this, that, or the other thing? And when you read the book, and you read the Bible, and I've read all of them, right? Like Quran all the way through to the Torah, Eightfold Path. To me, I had to arrive to it logically as well as spiritually.
mm,
It was important for me, right? And I had to be able to understand where everyone else is coming from, where my Muslim friends coming from, where my Buddhist friends coming from, where my Jewish mates coming from, like where they were coming from, and it's totally okay, you know? But then when I landed on Jesus, essentially, it all clicked. And I was like, wow, because everything there was forgiveness, grace, kindness. Yes, there was the rod, there was the rod, and there's the staff, which is like reward, and you'll get shat on if you do something wrong. But yes, okay, good. So if I'm acting immoral,
mhm,
like I'm aware of it. So like the gut feeling of like this doesn't sit well with me. This doesn't sit well with me. Like, and I was just kind of like, what would Jesus do? Because I'm very far from him. Like I'm nowhere near like him.
mm.
And then it would be like, okay, so he would welcome this person to their home, and he would say, hey, it's okay. He wouldn't go slap him in the face with the Bible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So finding that faith allowed your moral compass to steer you correctly. So people go, "Oh, you're a Christian, then you probably don't like Muslims." No, that's not true. One of my best mates Muslim,
Mhm.
and I don't need to justify why he's my best mate or not.
Yeah, yeah.
But by the same token, it's like Jesus didn't hate them. Like Sermon on the Mount, Jew and Gentile alike. Come on.
So, do
Oh,
you think that your faith came first from a curiosity standpoint of actually reading the books, and then that's where kind of, because I'm thinking about it in terms of myself, right? So we grew up Catholic, right? And I was definitely that I definitely had my faith as a kid,
yeah.
and then there was a I grew up then in a time where the Catholic Church kind of lost its grip on society in Ireland because it was very very tight, and then there's all these kind of horror stories about
And the
my
corruption, etc. Yeah.
exactly. It's like my mum and my dad would even talk about it, like that they'd go into school and the priest would hit you, the nun would
Yeah.
hit you. There was a lot of kind of sexual abuse scandals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So after kind of the Catholic Church lost its grip on Ireland, a lot of people then became less religious, and now in Ireland it's more of a case, because it's a very left-leaning country as well. It
Uh,
becomes a case where if you talk about God, or you talk about your religion, or you talk about Jesus, it's people think you're weird. Like, it's a very
yeah.
weird thing, which is strange. And like our Katie Taylor, she's the world champion boxer. She lives in my town. Like, she's probably the most famous athlete, person, most successful person to come out of Ireland ever. If you look through everything, and she's religious. And when she came out, like when she talks about like, oh yeah, praise to God when she wins the fight and stuff like that, at the start everyone was like, they almost had an allergic reaction to it, because
Yeah.
there had been so much like lost in religion in Ireland. And now I'm coming to a stage, obviously, because I've started to become a little bit more politically aware, and I've started to probably become a little bit more conservative in my views. Um, and like, with that, obviously, comes, just being more hyper aware of my hyper aware of Christianity, I think. And now I'm at a stage where I'm like, okay, I kind of want to. I want to engage in my faith more. I want to be more religious, but because it's been so long, I don't know if I am or if I can be. And I suppose my thoughts were then like, well, the only way to become more faithful is to engage in the practice, because it's like do the thing first and then believe later rather than believe and do. Does that make sense?
Walk by faith, not by sight. Yes.
Mm,
Yeah. What I would say there, bro, is religion has been used to justify some of the most horrific things. Like
yeah.
my parents are a great example because they're like, hey, the mama had some awful experiences with Christianity, right? Some awful ones. So, I was always like, Christianity,
Yeah.
ick, look. And then I was like, I need to find my feet.
Hmm.
Let me read this stuff, right? Let me have a look at this, right? And what I realized was it's not it's not religion that's the issue. It's the misinterpretation. And when I say misinterpretation, pulling a soundbite, right? So I could pull out, uh, a quote from Deuteronomy. Or like a quote from like the Old Testament where they say, if you grow wheat next to a different thing, you should be stoned to death.
Hmm.
But, like that's religion, right? Where you can use that to justify evil means. If anyone wants to understand the difference between faith and religion, go watch the Book of Eli. That's a brilliant, brilliant movie. Okay. But with faith, right, and having like a God-centered life allows you to walk in a bit. You're not morally better than someone else. You actually realize you're a fucking sinner. You actually realize, you know what, I'm falling short, but it's okay because I get to keep trying,
Hmm.
and that's okay, right? I get to keep giving it a go. I get to keep trying to be a little bit better. You know, there's this awesome saying which is like, I hope that my want to please you pleases you in that sense. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Um,
that's good.
and that's super important because, you know, and I said this to someone the other day. I was like, a good Christian isn't someone who walks around and preaches the gospel. A good Christian is a person who's kind. You see that lady walking across the street, you try to help her. You see that person being bullied, and you're like, I'm gonna step in there. You see, this happened, and and you embody your faith rather than preach it from a book,
Mhm.
right? You read your Bible so you can understand where you stand, what actually happened to help you, etc. But by the same token, what does it mean to be someone of faith, to be someone who wears their cross, like I wear mine? It just means try to be better than you were yesterday. And you know what? You're gonna fail.
Mhm.
And that's okay. But you try again. And each time you get a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And you don't need and politics has nothing to do with it. Right? I hate it when religion gets brought into politics, in my opinion, because I hate it when they get conflated. One's Machiavellian and one's actually quite pure in its nature.
Mhm.
And for me, it's like, honestly, it was the biggest and best decision and coming to I've ever had because it keeps you morally on track. It keeps you in check, and it also keeps you humble.
Mhm.
You're not the be all and end all of everything, mate.
Mhm.
You're also a human, and you may fall short, but you know what? That's okay that you fall short. Are you gonna try? Are you gonna try again? Yeah, I'm gonna try again. Then that's okay, right? That's like I think it's Isaiah 7:8, the righteous man falls down 7 times, yet rises again,
Mhm.
you know? And there's so many movies that people have no clue. Like Narnia is a Christian movie.
Mhm.
The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is a Christian movie.
Who was the writer?
Aslan,
Who was the writer of Narnia again? What's his name? Um.
that's
Oh,
the tip of my tongue.
he's really, really. He's a great writer. I'll tell you now. So
Ah, it's on the tip of my tongue, bro. But Aslan, he represents the Holy Spirit.
yeah.
You see him get put on that concrete table, and the witch kills him and the table snaps in half and all that kind of stuff. And like, for example, my parents aren't religious at all, you know. but you still pray for them and you try to be good as best as you can, and it's about living a good moral life. Now, the problem lies in this, right? Which is if you don't have faith, then how do you judge your moral compass by what's good and what's right?
Yes.
You don't have one. You just can make yours up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you're playing God. You're playing a dangerous game. So I found this hilarious, which was like, you know, fuck is an atheist gonna do? Who's he gonna snitch to? No one. Me? I'm gonna go snitch to Jesus. Yo, this person did this. Oh, I need to forgive him. Fuck, okay. I forgive him.
I suppose an atheist would come around if they wanted to give you a pushback. Though they would turn around and say, "Well, how many people did horrific things in the name of
Loads.
yeah." And
Loads.
I understand your point. That's the difference between
Faith
religion
and
and
religion.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like I put no stock in. I put there's a quote from the Kingdom of Heaven that will never leave my brain, where he says, "I put no stock in religion. Faith is in right action, goodness in your heart and in your head,
hmm
protecting those that can't protect themselves and serving others in the way that you best can."
mm.
That's faith. Now, how do you discern that moral compass? Well, you need faith. You need to have the scripture and go, oh, right. So you need to forgive your enemy.
Yeah, yeah. You can't kill
You,
that person, or you can't steal
yeah,
from your
don't,
neighbor.
yeah, don't go kill that person. That's a
Yeah,
bad
yeah,
idea.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So it's like to the point where like you get to a point, and I'm not some kind of like spiritually enlightened individual, I don't think, but I'm God's special retard. That's how I see myself. When I pray, I'm like, "Look, just treat me like I'm an idiot." You know what I mean? And He helps me out that way. But it's so imperative to shackle something to something bigger. If you
mm,
don't, then you just make up your own set of rules, and not everyone's going to play by those rules, number one. And number two, they can lead you astray. Now, if you walk by faith, you're always going to do what's good. You're going to pray for your enemies. Right. So for example, like you want a real true story that's pretty like deep.
hmm
I forgot, fuck it, I'll share on your podcast. Fuck it. Right. So after I saw the footage of Charlie Kirk get shot,
hmm
right? I saw the whole like I was able to get hold of like the actual footage, right? Like the bullet ball and the
yeah,
panic and I looked at it and I was like, right, that is horrific. And I'm like, and then it's not because I'm left or right. I really is it left or right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I don't fucking care. That's the truth. And I saw that and I was like, this guy's, debating people and I've noticed with people who come up and they like dressed in dresses and transgender stuff, and people are like booing them. He's like, guys, just let them have their say. And I'm like, that's cool.
yeah.
Like, he let people have their say to a degree, and I like that, and I have a lot of respect for him. And then I saw that, and then I was like, you know what? I went upstairs and I started praying. And I was like, God, you know, you know, I pray for Charlie's family. I pray for his kids. And then, like through gritted teeth, I was like, but God, I've got to pray for the person who shot him too, because I am just like that person. I'm no different. I'm a sinner too, right? I've also made mistakes in my life,
Mm.
and you've extended me grace. So who am I to be judge, jury, and executioner? Let the chips
You
fall
know
where
what
they
that
may.
reminds me of? There's this phenomenal video that went viral of years ago, and this man
Yep.
he murdered
Yep.
loads of. I think you know what I'm talking about. He
Yep. I know
murdered
exactly
loads.
the one you're on about. The
Yeah,
big
and they
guy with the
all.
gray beard.
Yeah, everyone went up into court and they were like, "I hate you. You're a monster. You're a monster. You're a monster." And then one man, he goes, "Listen, you've made it very difficult for me to follow my religion, but I forgive you." And then he started. His
He made
first
the
bit
guy
of
cry.
emotion throughout. Yeah, he started
Yeah.
crying, and I'm like,
And then
that's
it it it
perfect.
it would like I remember I was praying and I was like, God, I, I have to pray for the person who shot him as well. And I just pray that, whatever is supposed to happen happens, and I don't want people to seek revenge or hatred, but I need to pray for that person too. And
Mm.
that's not me virtue signaling to any listeners out there. That's
Yeah,
just the
yeah,
truth,
yeah,
right? That's just the fucking truth. And I don't care whether you like it or not. That is just the truth.
yeah.
And that to me is the epitome, like, not me epitomizing it, but the epitome of faith is you pray for the people who do you wrong,
Yeah.
as well as the people who do you right.
Well, there's a great video in like there's a montage of loads of different videos, and there's one like where Charlie's like or someone there's a group of them, and they're like, oh, you're very respectful to us and we appreciate it, and then Charlie was like, oh well, it's not me. If it was me, I'd be screaming and yelling, and it's not me. It's the Holy Lord, basically, is what he was saying. Is that
Yeah.
that's keeps
But
us grounded.
you see that humility?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. Like you're never so entitled
Yeah, yeah. It's
that you
not, oh,
just like,
yeah, well, that's just who I am. I'm just a very, kind and compassionate, and I have
yeah,
loads of humility, and, I'm just a great person. It's not
yeah.
about me. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's like I could exactly. I'm sitting and I'll happily sit here and say, no, I don't see myself as a good person. I see myself as a bad guy trying to be good,
yeah, yeah,
right? Because you know what? I dropped the ball.
yeah.
You dropped the ball. We all drop the ball, and that's okay.
Hmm.
You try again, and you pray for your enemy, and all that kind of stuff. And some people, but did you notice that after that happened, people en masse went to church?
Yeah, I noticed that. And this is what I wanted to round this up with you with, because obviously Gen Z, the stats showed from my last stat of the day, people, Gen Z is the least religious generation in US history. About 34% identify as religiously unaffiliated. Now, but those who are religious in Gen Z, they have also shown that the research shows that they're on average going to mass more as well. So the people who are religious out of Gen Z are very religious versus now compared to the years before. But they're still the least religious generation in history, and I suppose that also probably um, you know suggests a lot of the kind of rhetoric that you see online of
Ties
people
in, mate.
celebrating
Yeah,
death
it
and stuff
ties in.
like that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like when you don't have a moral compass,
yeah.
celebrating someone that, like, take Charlie Kirk out the way, right? Celebrate something else that's
Yeah. Anything. Yeah,
horrific.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, anything.
They don't care.
Celebrate something that's
Yeah,
horrific. It's like, well, why can't I?
yeah, yeah.
What's wrong with it? It's
Exactly. Yeah,
like, can you not see that that's wrong?
yeah.
You know? And like same thing with regard to what happened with my mom and my dad, religion was used as a weapon.
Hmm.
And there's like this, and like I remember my mom telling me a story where she got like locked in a basement filled with gargoyles by a bunch of nuns,
Hmm.
and with religion now, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it's like, before I get so angry, I'd be like, oh, filled with righteous indignation, and now I'm like, what? I need to pray for that shit. I need to
yeah,
pray about that, and hope that that changes, because like he gave you the moral guidance, and you're not better or worse than the person who did bad things.
mm,
You just understand that you're just as capable of doing those things. Like I say this to people all the time. I say, you know, when Jesus is carrying his cross to Golgotha, for example, no one really helped him other than one guy. Judas sold him out, but we were all a Judas. But the irony of it, so Judas sold him out, but Judas never was like, I'm sorry, I repent, right? Peter denied him 3 times. But then when he rose from the dead, Christ said, hey, do you love me? And he said, I love you, and I'm sorry I denied you. And he said, it's okay, bro. Come here. Like, imagine that level of love.
mm,
It's incomprehensible almost.
mm,
But the reason why Judas ended up dying and killing himself was because he couldn't live with the fact he sold him out and couldn't go to him and say, I'm sorry. Or, like, I shouldn't have done that.
mm,
That's what I mean, morality, right? Morality. For anyone listening here, even if you're not religious, morality is the key, right? And understand that you're no better and no worse than people who've done some bad things.
mm,
And that's okay. But you can always change the narrative. You can always change. You can always improve. That's beautiful. You never lost. You never lost. How amazing is that to know? Even, and you look, my girlfriend's not even religious, bro.
yeah.
She ain't religious. And I just say to her, I say, what, you don't need to believe in him, and that's totally fine, but he believes in you. That's cool.
I'd say that bothers her, doesn't it?
I say that to her all the time, and she's like, "Yeah, that's nice," and I think it's important because it's important to just have a moral compass, understand what's right and wrong, and understand why it's right and wrong,
Mm,
and understand that if you do wrong, you can still make it right,
mm.
and that's okay.
And I think that would wrap up, our very dynamic conversation starting off on
That was an awesome dynamic one.
Sadia Khan, the social anxiety, Gen Z, um, and in religion as well. I love that. All right, so there we go, folks. We leave no stone unturned on this podcast.
Yes, sir.
We will be back with another episode and talking about just two lads on the podcast, just talking. No experts
Yeah,
around
just
here.
talking. Yeah.
Just
By the
what
way, for everyone listening, Carl and me are not planning on running for office. We're just two guys talking about our lived experience, and hopefully, you guys can take something positive from it.
you're not allowed to talk about. You're not allowed to have opinions. You're not allowed to talk about anything. Free speech is made up and all that stuff. Anyway, until next time, brother. It's a pleasure as always. Chat to you on the next
Always.
one.